students. Today we are going to start the chapter Assembly to Detailed Drawing of the subject Mechanical Working Drawing. So what is assembly to detailed drawing? In the previous chapter we have done detail to assembly drawing. That was in that various components of an assembly such as a screw jack or Oldham couplings or a footstep bearing was given. We have assembled all the components properly at their location and then we have drawn the assembled view. In this chapter we have to do the reverse of the assembly. That is, we will be given an assembled view of any of the assembly, and then we have to separate all the components and then draw the individual sectional front view and top view of that component. So let us see. Here, the 3D drawing of an assembly of an universal coupling is given. This entire assembly is of universal coupling. Now, what is the use of universal coupling? Universal coupling is used to connect two shafts in order to transmit power from one shaft to the other. You can see this is my shaft number 1 here, and this is the shaft number 2 on the right hand side. So, in order to connect this shaft 2 with the shaft 1, so that the power can be transmitted from this shaft, or the motion can be transmitted from the shaft number 1 to the shaft number 2, the entire assembly that we use is nothing but the universal coupling. So what are the various components of the assembly of universal coupling? You can see the various components are: first is the shaft, two shafts, shaft number 1, shaft number 2. Then the second part is the fork. You can see fork. Now this is the vertical fork, and similarly we have a horizontal fork. So vertical fork and a horizontal fork. So the second part fork is present in two quantity. One will be the vertical and other will be horizontal. Now in order to connect or to join both the fork, that is the vertical fork, with the horizontal fork, we use the third part, that is the center block. Now here see, you can see a center block is pointed. So this part at the center is nothing but the center block. Now the center block consists of two cylinders, two hollow cylinders. One is the vertical cylinder. This is the vertical cylinder which will be present inside the vertical fork, and this is the horizontal cylinder which will be present inside the horizontal fork. Now both this vertical cylinder and horizontal cylinder are in casted with each other. That is, they both are manufactured as a single part, they are not different part. So the center block will consist of two cylinders, or two hollow cylinders. One is the vertical cylinder, that is this, which will be present inside the vertical fork, and second is the horizontal cylinder, that is this cylinder, which will be present inside the horizontal fork. And this center block is used to join both the horizontal fork and the vertical fork. Now in order to lock the vertical fork with the vertical cylinder of the center block, we use a pin. This is the pin. You can see this is a pin, or we can see here this is a pin. So in order to lock the center block with the vertical fork, we use the vertical pin. Similarly, in order to lock the horizontal fork, that is this fork, with the horizontal cylinder of the center block, that is this cylinder, we use the horizontal pin. So pins are used to lock the vertical fork and the horizontal fork with the vertical cylinder and the horizontal cylinder of the center block. Now in order to lock the pin, see, if we insert this pin, there is a hole. This cylinder, this is a hollow cylinder, this will have a hole inside it. So we will insert the pin and the pin will pass through this cylinder, and this is the end of the pin. So the pin should not get out of the horizontal cylinder of the center block or the vertical cylinder of the center block, because this entire assembly will be in motion. So during motion there will be a tendency of this pin which is horizontal or this pin which is vertical to get out of the cylinders of the cell center block. So in order to lock the pin, we use a collar. So you can see this is the collar which is used for vertical pin. Similar collar will be used to lock the horizontal pin also. It will be present on this side. So the collar is used to lock the vertical pin passing through the center block, as well as the horizontal pin passing through the center block, so that the pin does not moves out during the transmission of power from this shaft to this shaft. And finally we will lock the collar with the pin by using a taper pin. So here the collar, we have a hole inside it here, and we will insert this taper pin which will pass through the collar and the pin, vertical pin. So this taper pin will pass through the hole which is present inside the collar as well as the vertical pin, so that the vertical pin gets locked with the center block. Similarly, similar collar will be present at this end also, and that collar will lock the horizontal pin with the horizontal cylinder of the center block. So collar, this part, and taper pin are used to lock the pins, that is the vertical pin and the horizontal pin, with the center block. So this entire assembly is the 3D view of the assembly of universal coupling. Now we will see the exploded view of this assembly. Now this is the exploded view. You can see we have separated all the parts. So this part is nothing but the horizontal fork, and this part is the vertical fork. This part which is at the center is the center block. So you can see the center block consists of two hollow cylinders. First is the vertical cylinder. Now this vertical cylinder will fit inside this vertical fork, and this horizontal cylinder will fit inside this horizontal fork. Now two pins are given, a vertical pin and a horizontal pin. Now I said that these pins are used to lock the center block, that is this part, with the vertical fork and the horizontal fork. So first we will insert the vertical cylinder of the center block inside the vertical fork. You can see holes are given in the fork as well as the center block. So when this part, that is the center block, is inserted inside the vertical fork, this hole will match with this hole, or both the holes will get aligned, and then after alignment of both these holes, we will insert the pin from the top. Now this pin will pass through the hole of the fork as well as the hole of the center block, that is this hole, and finally we will lock this center block with the vertical fork. Similarly, this horizontal cylinder of the center block will be match or will be fitted inside this horizontal fork, so that this hole which is present in the horizontal cylinder of the center block will get aligned with the holes, that is this hole which is present inside the horizontal fork. When this hole and this hole get matched or aligned, we will insert this horizontal pin. So this horizontal pin will now pass through these two holes of the horizontal fork and this hole of the center block, that is the horizontal hole of the center block, so that both the vertical fork and horizontal fork finally gets locked with the center block. So basically these pins are used to lock the center block with the vertical fork and the horizontal fork. Now after inserting these pins, we will lock these pins by using collar. You can see the pin is having a small hole at its bottom, and this horizontal pin is also having a small hole at its bottom. Now these holes are used to insert the taper pin. First we will insert this pin. This pin will pass through both these holes and this collar, and finally at the end, that is this end, we will insert this collar, and the collar is also having these holes. You can see these holes which are present in the pin, similar holes are present of same dimension in the collar also, both the collars. You can see here also holes are present. Now these holes are used to insert the taper pin, so that these horizontal and vertical pins get locked inside the assembly. Otherwise during motion what will happen, these pins, that is a vertical pin and horizontal pin, will have a tendency to move out or to slide outside. So in order to lock this vertical pin and the horizontal pin with both the forks and the central block, we use collar. Finally, when after inserting the collar here, we will lock the pin with the collar by inserting the taper pin, which was shown in the earlier slide. You can see here taper pin. This is nothing but taper pin, and this was the collar. So this is the collar, this is the end of the vertical pin. Finally what we will do, we will lock this collar with the taper pin with the we will lock this collar with the vertical pin by inserting this taper pin. So this taper pin will pass through the hole which is present inside the collar as well as the pin, so that both the parts get locked with each other. Also you can see here the shaft which is present inside the hub of the, this is the vertical so this is the vertical fork and this is the horizontal fork, both are having a hub. These are the integral part of the fork. This part or this cylindrical part is nothing but called as the hub. So this shaft will be inserted inside the hub. This hub will be having a cylindrical hole inside it for inserting the shaft. And finally, when we will insert this shaft inside this hub, we will lock both the parts by using the key. You can see here key. So this key, another key, is used to lock the shaft with the hub of the vertical fork. Similarly, we will use this type of key on the right hand side also, because in order to lock this shaft which is present on the right hand side with the hub, this is the hub which will have a cylindrical hole inside it, and this shaft will be inserted inside that hole. Finally, we will lock this part with the horizontal fork by using a similar type of key which is present on the right hand side also. So this was the exploded view. Now we will see how the question comes in the exam. In the exam, you will be given this type of view, that is, this is the entire assembled view. This is the entire assembled view of a universal coupling. So this is the sectional front view of the entire assembly, whereas this is the top view of the assembly. You can see it is written here sectional front view, and here it is written as top view. Also, part list is given here. So this part list indicates the various parts or the components which are used in this assembly, their material, of which material they are made up of, as well as the quantity in which they are present. So every detail of each and every part you will get from the part list. So in exam, you will be given this view, that is the sectional front view, the top view, and the part list. From this view or from this diagram, you have to draw the detailed drawing. So for drawing the detailed drawing, what you have to do, you have to just separate all the parts and then draw the front view and top view of each and every component. For that, first you have to locate each and every part. So first we will see the part list. Part number one is the fork, which is made up of cast iron. C.I means cast iron, and it is present in two quantity. We have seen that fork is present in two quantity. One was the vertical fork and second was the horizontal fork. Now we will locate this fork which is made up of cast iron in this assembly drawing. So the part number one, so we will see where is the part number one. So you can see here arrow has been pointed and a circle has been drawn, and inside that one has been written. So this indicates the part number one. So this part where the arrow has been pointed is nothing but the fork. Similarly, the second fork is here. You can see this part, this is the second fork. This was the vertical fork and this is the horizontal fork. Now you can see this in the top view, the top view of this vertical fork. This is my vertical fork, part number one. Here the top view of the vertical fork is this is the top view of the vertical fork, and this is my horizontal fork. This is the top view of the horizontal fork. You can see this is the top view of the horizontal fork, and this is the front view of the horizontal fork. So you can see that the front view of the horizontal fork is similar to the top view of front view of the vertical fork. This is the front view of the vertical fork is similar to the top view of the horizontal fork, and the top view of the vertical fork, this is the top view of the vertical fork, is similar to the front view of the horizontal fork, because both the parts were identical, but one was vertical and the second was horizontal. So when we will see the top view of the this vertical fork, we will get this diagram, but for horizontal fork we will get this type of view, that is similar type of view in the front view, because both the parts are identical, only their axis orientation is different. One is vertical and second is horizontal. Now the second part is the center block. Center block is made up of cast iron and its quantity is 1. Now we will locate the center block, so we will trace part number 2. So we have to see the arrow where part number 2 has been pointed. So you can see part number 2 and the arrow has been pointed here. So this is nothing but the part number 2. So this is the center block. Now center block consists of two cylinders. So this is the vertical cylinder. You can see this is the vertical cylinder and this is the horizontal cylinder. So this is the horizontal cylinder and this is the vertical cylinder. Part number 2 is nothing but the center block. Now part number 3 is the pin. Now this pin is made up of mild steel and its quantity is 2. So part number 3, which is pin, made up of mild steel and its quantity is 2. Now we will locate the part number 3. So you can see here part number 3, an arrow has been pointed. So this is the pin. Now this pin is the pin which is used to lock the center block with the vertical flow or the center block with the horizontal flow. So this is the vertical pin, front view of the vertical pin, that is part number 3, and this is the front view of the horizontal pin. You can see this is the front view of the horizontal pin. And if we see this pin in the top view, we can see here. So this is the horizontal pin. So this is the front view of the vertical pin, whereas this is the top view of the horizontal vertical pin. Whereas the horizontal pin is having a sectional front view here. This is the horizontal pin, and this is the top view. This is nothing but the top view of the horizontal pin. Both the pins will be used to lock the center block, that is this part with the vertical fork and the horizontal fork. Now we will see part number 4, that is the taper pin, which is again made up of mild steel and its quantity is 2. Now where is this taper pin? So first we have to locate the part number 4. We will see here. So you can see here part number 4, which is the taper pin. So this pin, this is nothing but the taper pin. Again this pin will be present in two quantities. This is the taper pin which will be inserted inside the vertical pin, and this pin is having its top view here. You can see these two dotted lines, dotted line from here to here and from here to here. These two vertical dotted lines is nothing but the top view of this taper pin. Now they are dotted because this pin will not be visible from the top view. So this is the top view of the pin which is inserted inside the vertical pin. Now why this pin is used? This pin is used to lock this vertical pin with the fork and the center block. Similar pin will be present. Now this was the taper pin which was inserted inside the vertical pin. Now similar pin will be inserted inside the horizontal pin also. So this is the top view of the horizontal pin from here to here. You can see this part is nothing but the top view of this horizontal pin. Now similar taper pin is also present here. So this is a taper pin which will be inserted inside the horizontal pin, and both these taper pins which is present here and here are used to lock this vertical pin or this horizontal pin with the center block and the forks of the assembly. Now the next part is the collar. Again collar part number 5 is made up of mild steel and its quantity is 2. Now we will see here collar. We will locate first where is the collar. So part number 5 we will see here. So you can see here the location of the part number 5 is given here. So this is the part number 5 which is nothing but the collar. So this is the collar. Similar collar is present here also. Now collar will be again used to lock this vertical pin. So in order to lock this vertical pin we use two components, that is the collar and the taper pin. So for locking this vertical pin we have used one taper pin and one collar. This is the sectional front view of the collar. Similarly for locking this horizontal pin we will again use the taper pin, that is this pin, and the collar. So this is the collar. Again this is the collar. Now the sixth part is the key, which is again made up of mild steel. Now we have to locate the part number 6, that is the key. You can see here part number 6. Now as said earlier, the shaft, why the assembly is used? The assembly is used to connect one shaft, that is this shaft on the left hand side, with this shaft on the right hand side, so then motion can be transmitted from this shaft to this shaft. So when this shaft is inserted inside the hub, though this was the hub of the fork, vertical fork. So when this shaft is inserted inside the vertical fork, it has to be locked with the vertical fork. Otherwise during the transmission of the motion or power, this shaft will slide in outward direction, or it will get detached from the vertical fork. So in order to prevent the sliding motion of this shaft or detachment of this shaft from the vertical fork, what we have to do, we have to lock this shaft with the key. So this is the locking key which is used to lock the shaft with the vertical fork. And here you can see this is a top view of the key. So the part number 6 is nothing but the key. It is used to lock the shaft with the fork. So this is the top view. You can see a dotted lines, and this part little outside is dark. So this is the top view of the key, and this is the front view of the key. Similarly we will have the key on the left hand side also. So you can see here this is nothing but the key. It is not visible in this view because it will be present on the back side. So this dotted lines, two dotted lines represent the key which is used to lock this shaft with the horizontal fork. Now the part number 7, of course the shaft is again made up of mild steel and its quantity is 2. So we have two shafts, one on the left hand side and one on the right hand side. This is the front view of the shaft and this is the top view of the shaft, first shaft and second shaft. Now the section has been taken from the center. You can see this is a top view of the entire assembly. Now we have cut this assembly from the center. So this is the section line, and the section line have been represented by using the letters A and A. So the entire assembly has been cut from the center, and then we have drawn the sectional front view. So in the exam, this type of question will be given to you. You will be given the sectional front view and top view as well as the part list. So using this part list, you have to locate each and every part. Now in exam, they will say to draw the sectional front view and top view of particular components. You can see total in this part list we are having 7 components, but in exam you don't need to draw the front view and top view of each and every component. You have to study the question carefully, read the question carefully, and identify out of these 7 parts which parts have been given, or which for which parts the sectional front view and top view has to be drawn. So accordingly, first locate all these parts in this assembly drawing and then draw the sectional front view and top view of only those parts which have been asked in the question. You don't need to draw the sectional front view and top view of entire all the 7 parts. So carefully read the questions. Now we will see how the detailed drawing of this universal coupling will be looking like. So this is the exploded view or the detailed drawing of the universal coupling. You can see here. So this is the sectional front view of the fork. Now you students note that the vertical fork and the horizontal fork both are similar. That is, they have same dimension and they have same shape. So you don't need to draw the sectional front view and top view of both vertical fork and horizontal fork. So if you have to draw just the sectional front view and the top view of any one of the fork, because both the parts are similar. So this is the sectional front view of the fork and this is the top view of the fork. Second, part number 2, center block. So this was the front view, that is the sectional front view of the center block, and this is the top view of the center block. In the center block we have 2 cylinders. So this is the vertical cylinder, this part is the vertical cylinder which is having a hole inside it for inserting the pin, and this is the horizontal cylinder which is again having a hole inside it for inserting the pin. So this is the top view of the horizontal cylinder and this is the top view of the vertical cylinder. Again you can see here the front view of the vertical cylinder is similar to the top view of the horizontal cylinder because both parts are same in nature, but they are having their axis at right angles to each other, that is they are perpendicular to each other. So the front view of the vertical cylinder will be similar to the top view of the horizontal cylinder. Exception is that we have to show the sections in the front view, and in top view we don't need to show the sections. Similarly, you can see the top view of the vertical cylinder of the center block is similar to the front view of the horizontal cylinder of the center block, but we have shown sections in the front view, whereas in the top view we don't need to show the sections. Now here we have the pin. This is the front view of the pin, of the vertical pin, which is used to lock this fork with this center block. So in order to lock the fork with this center block, that is part number 2, we use the pin. So this is the front view of the pin. Here the top view has not been given, but we have to draw the top view. Now this is a cylindrical pin, so the top view will be circles. Now the pin is having a slot at its bottom. Now this diameter of the slot is given as 6 mm. Now this 6 mm slot, or the hole which is present inside the pin, is used for inserting the taper pin inside it. Now part number 4, this is the collar. Again you can see collar is cylindrical in nature. So this is the front view, sectional front view of the collar, and this is the top view of the collar. Now the collar is having a hole at its center. This hole is similar to this hole. Now both these holes are used to insert this taper pin. You can see part number 5 is nothing but the taper pin. So in order to insert this taper pin, these holes are provided. So these holes will be of diameter 6 mm. So this is the sectional front view of the collar, and this is the top view of the collar. You can see these holes. This is the hole for the taper pin. In the top view it will not be visible, so they are shown as dotted line. Then we have part number 7, that is the shaft. This is a shaft. The shaft will have a slot on its upper side or lower side. You can see this slot. Now this slot is used for inserting this key. This is the locking key. That is the key which is used to lock this shaft with this fork. You can see the fork is having a slot. Here also a slot is present. This is nothing but the key slot. So when we will insert this shaft inside this fork, so this slot will match with the slot of the vertical fork or the horizontal fork. And finally we will insert this taper key inside the fork so that it gets locked with the shaft. Now you can see here that this key which will be inserted inside the shaft and the fork is of dimension of height 10 mm. You can see the height is what, 10 mm, whereas the width is 16 mm. So this slot which is present inside the fork will be of height 5 mm, and the remaining half slot of height 5 mm will be present inside the shaft. So in order to insert this key which is of 10 mm height, 5 mm slot will be present inside the fork and the remaining 5 mm will be present inside the shaft, so that when this key is inserted, half of this key will go inside the vertical fork and the remaining half will go inside this shaft, so that this vertical fork gets locked with the shaft. So this is the exploded view. We have to draw in the exam this exploded view. Again I'm repeating students, here the total 7 views of each and every part has been given, but you don't need to draw the top view and the front view of each and every part. Only sectional front view and top view of those parts has to be drawn in the exam, which has been asked in the question. So again, read the question very carefully. Now one thing to note is that students, you can see here the vertical pin, the horizontal pin, both are cylindrical in shape. Similarly, the center block is cylindrical in shape and having a cylindrical hole inside it. Again, the collars which are used for locking this pin with the center block and the fork are cylindrical in shape. So you can see the majority of the parts here are cylindrical in shape. That is, when we will draw the top view or the front view, we will draw the front view and top view of cylinders. Similarly, for this vertical fork, the holes inside it, this hole and this hole as well as this hole are cylindrical in shape. Then the hole for the shaft is also cylindrical in shape. Then this hub is also cylindrical in shape. So we can conclude that in this assembly drawing, majority of the parts are cylindrical in shape. Now for this fork, you can see this part is a semicircle. The the top, if you observe this part from the top view, this portion, that is some portion will be in rectangular shape, that is this part will be a plane surface, whereas this part is also a plane surface but it will be in the form of a semicircle, whereas the holes inside it are cylindrical in shape. So in the next lecture we will see how to draw the sectional front view and top view of each and every components. For drawing the sectional front view and top view, first we will identify the various dimensions and then we will proceed further.